Hello everyone, and welcome to the Get the Best from Your Social Media Presence and Opinions on What to Do Regarding COVID-19 webinar. A few housekeeping items to mention before we get started with today's webinar. All attendees are on mute. If you have a question for me or today's webinar speaker, please send it through the questions section on your GoToWebinar dashboard, or you can use the Raise Your Hand feature to ask your question verbally. You can access the question chat box by clicking on the plus sign next to the question header on the dashboard. To access the Raise Your Hand feature, click on the hand icon that is also located on the left side of the GoToWebinar dashboard. We will then unmute your line and you will be able to ask your question. All questions regarding the presentation content will be held until the end of the presentation, when we will open for Q&A. Without further delay, I would like to introduce our presenter today, Pat Perdue. Pat Perdue has worked in brand and customer engagement for over 20 years, with clients as diverse as Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, as well as numerous global financial institutions and public personalities. Pat has worked with some of North America's most recognized brands. Pat's defining approach has always been about discovering the brand's most captivating story and then promoting that story in innovative ways using video production, social media, podcasts, and web presence to create a consistent message across all touch points. Without further delay, let's begin. Pat?
Thank you, AJ. I appreciate that. Let me go ahead and share my screen just to make sure that I'm doing that. Okay, and AJ, can you confirm that I'm sharing my screen right now?
That's correct.
Awesome, thank you so much. And I'd like to welcome everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your very busy days, no doubt, to spend this time with us. I know it's kind of odd staring at a computer and hearing a voice come out the other side, and I'm not looking at you and you're not looking at me, but this isn't pre-recorded. I'm sitting at home in my home office, so as you yourself might be. So thanks so much for spending this time and setting aside this time for us. So we've had a little bit of a pivot. When we first envisioned this presentation, we thought, oh, okay, let's talk about web presence and engagement over social media. And of course, given the recent events, we've decided to change it a little bit to focus on the pressing matters that are in front of us. And of course, we can really use digital communication to do that. So the pivot is, as you can see, being relevant for your clients in the age of COVID-19. There's a little picture of myself. And I've got the email, my email there, feel free to use it. So a little bit about me, and thanks to AJ for that introduction. I've spent a lot of my career building brands with video, audio, social media, and I've got some clients there, and I work with a number of public personalities in the United States. So my team and I help brands and companies develop relevance using digital media, and relevance is a theme that is really going to permeate this entire conversation. So as I go through this, you may have questions. So feel free to send those into the question box, and AJ will commit to them. AJ will commit to them toward the end of the presentation. And if it's urgent, then just mention it's timely, and AJ, go ahead and interrupt my speaking to communicate that question. So, all right, so a little bit about what we're going to talk about today: COVID-19 communication, establishing wellness leadership. And I know that we've all got a lot on our minds. We've got our kids, we've got our parents, we've got the wellness of our business. It's not like, it's hard for us to set aside the sort of the creative space to think about being a leader in this situation, but it's the very thing that we can do. And this does represent part of a virtual training program that my company has around staying relevant in a virtual world and also keeping the revenue flowing. So we're going to touch on those two items as well. So your time is super valuable. and I appreciate that you've set this time aside to spend with me. And so here are some ways that you can maximize it. As I mentioned, type in your questions as they come to you, and AJ will get to them toward the end of the presentation. And as you're listening, look for one or two things that you can do now. A lot of this is answering the question, okay, so what do I do? What can I do? And our own clients are asking that question, and we ourselves are asking that question. So hopefully there will be one or two things that come out of this presentation that you can do right away. So try to look for that. And also, I recommend having something to write with. I often have a pen and notebook. In fact, right now, I have a pen and notebook right beside my computer. You can also minimize this screen and open a Word doc, but at least as long as you have something to take notes on, that will be helpful, even though this presentation will be recorded and made available to you. And at the end of this presentation, we're going to talk about immediate next steps. For me, I always advise my clients, a meeting isn't a meeting until we have action items and immediate next steps, not just action items, but what's the first thing we're going to do out of that meeting. So I would like to extend that to you. So we are going to have immediate next steps at the end of this presentation. And we got, just for your timeline, this takes, as I've been sort of going through this, takes around 30-35 minutes from end to end. And at that point, we're going to open it up to questions. Okay, so how do we prepare for this? We looked at COVID messaging in spas, as well as gyms, yoga studios, a variety of sources that would be impacted, areas that would be impacted by this situation that we're in. And I also, we looked at some wellness thought leaders to see how they're talking about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some best practices, and also we're going to try to move from reaction, which is over to action. What's the proactive thing that we can do? And hopefully, you know, a lot of you listening and joining us are just on the cusp of reacting, because this, you know, this is such big news, to acting, to getting in front of this, strategizing our response, and then doing what we need to do. So let's take a look at some of the reactions. So first of all, have you posted your COVID-19 communication on your website and or your social? And a lot of us have, some of us haven't. So in the exploration of online digital communication that we did prior to this, there were examples of spas that had not yet posted what they're doing in response to this. So if you're listening and you haven't, that's something that you really, of course, want to do. And we're going to take a look at examples of how we could make that communication really, really impactful. So specific is terrific. That's a phrase that I carry through all of my guidance all the time, and it really makes a difference in this environment. So first of all, what are your policies for facility hygiene? Do you use disinfectant? What kind? Is it hospital grade? The people who visit and are reading your policies and your response to this are looking for specifically what you're doing differently and why you're making the choices that you make. So so if it's, we use this because we always use it and it's always worked out well in these special times, that's not the message that's going to provide the most comfort. The message that provides a lot of comfort is these are special times and it's not business as usual. What are your policies for staff hygienic practices? Again, be as specific as you can. Every hour, we shut everything down and we wash our hands and everything for 20 minutes to the tune of staying alive, or to the tune of whatever it's going to be. So any way that you can very specifically say this is how it looks differently is helpful. Finally, if you have revised business hours, if you are still open and you have revised or shortened business hours, why? Some great messaging has been around, you know, normally we open at 10, we're opening at noon, so we can spend an extra 2 hours cleaning and disinfecting. That's great messaging. And also the phrase, we're following Public Health Agency of Canada doing that. What I've noticed, or what we've noticed in our survey of messaging, is that sometimes that's been the only thing. We're doing business as usual, and we're following all the Public Health Agency of Canada guidelines. If that's the messaging that you're landing on, I'm going to suggest that it's not quite enough, because that's almost implying that we're making these changes because we were told to by the government. And of course, that's not the truth. You're making these changes because the wellness of your clients and your staff is first and foremost in your mind. So, so definitely state that you're following Public Health Agency of Canada guidelines, and also make sure that your messaging includes what else you're doing. And of course, are you open? Are you closing? So in summary of this little segment, the key takeaway for messaging, if you're open, is what are you doing differently because these circumstances are so very different. Okay, moving on. A lot of folks have messaging, and this is excellent messaging. What I would like to do though is tweak it or add to it, if I may. So in sort of an overview, this is what a lot of the we're closed messaging looks like, sort of in a summary. Your health and the health and well-being of our staff is our #1 priority. For this reason, we've elected to close our doors until it's safe for us to be together again. Until then, be well. Okay, that's fine. The question that a reader will have when they look at that message is, okay, so what do I do? What do I do next? So imagine if this was your bank and you read that message, your response would be, okay, they're closing, so what am I going to do? So that's really the message or the question that your clients are asking. And if you can do what you can do to answer that question constantly, then that's all the messaging you need to do. So it's a little bit about providing leadership and staying relevant. So, so yeah, having that message is awesome. And then providing some guidance that's client-centric. And you'll notice the word you in all of these examples. Here's what you can do to keep you and your loved ones safe. Here's what you can do to stay physically healthy, even if you're stuck inside or just want to maintain social distance. Or here's what you can do to stay mentally healthy. So that's leadership, wellness leadership. And again, notice the word you, it's providing some guidance, and that's really comforting. And as you can imagine, a huge source of stress and anxiety during this time is a sense that we don't have control of things. All the cues that we're so used to are taken away or changed. And something that will help provide a tremendous amount of peace of mind is focusing on the things that we can do. So messaging like this is super gratifying to receive some instruction from you, who are really the wellness authority in your clients' lives. Just continuing on a little bit, always include a call to action. You've probably heard that phrase before, and usually, traditionally, a call to action is something like, sign up, click here to book a session, click here to purchase something. It always does answer the question, what do I do next? So I'm going to suggest that call to actions are, or can be, a little bit different. They can also be loving advice. And I know I'm going to pause here if you have any questions, and I know I'm downloading a ton of information, and there's a lot to think about. So if you have any questions, go ahead and populate the questions window and send them into AJ. And if it's timely relative to something that I just said, then make a note of that. And AJ, feel free to interrupt me at your discretion to ask whatever questions might come in. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue. So here are some examples of communication and calls to action that can be loving advice. Check in with your loved ones who aren't with you. Brew a pot of your favorite tea. Ours is chamomile. Leave your favorite wellness rituals in the comments. We're going to get to the relevance of comments in this section, assuming this is in social media such as Instagram. Or check back with us for tips on staying well. Now remember that last one. Remember I mentioned specific is terrific. So that fourth bullet point, check back with us for tips on staying well. That's okay, but it could be made a lot better. One of the examples of how it could be made better, or one way, is when should we check back? And some of the messaging that I've seen has included, some of the excellent messaging has included, we will be here to update our guidance every day at 3 o'clock. So check back with us every day at 3 o'clock for tips on how you can maintain your wellness at home, something like that. So now, I mentioned that I'm going to give you some homework. I'd like you to take a moment, and you've got pen and paper, you've got something to write with. What are 3 calls to action that you can leave on your social media or on your website right now that will be relevant for someone who's asking, okay, so what can I do? And here are some examples here. If you want to take these examples, absolutely do that. Or if you want to modify it a little, make a slight change, or something that's more aligned to your specific brand for your specific spa. So I'm going to give you just about 10 or 15 seconds to go ahead and do that. Okay, and if you would like to, in the comments or in the questions, pardon me, go ahead, and if you would like to leave one or two, AJ, I'd be really, really curious to see if anyone has had the courage to share your questions or your calls to action that you might be leaving on your social media for your clients when they visit your social media to see what's going on. So go ahead and if you have any, and AJ, if some have shown up, just go ahead and shout them out.
Yeah, so we've had one suggested, start a new skincare routine.
Love it, love it. And to the sender, that's fabulous. If I can offer some guidance, start a new skincare routine. I'm wondering how we can make that a little bit more specific, because people, they're thinking about a billion things right now. They're thinking about all the things that we're thinking about. They're thinking about their own wellness. They're thinking about how weird it is to go grocery shopping and give the coronavirus stare to everybody that you see. These are weird times. So the more specific we can make our calls to action, the better. So starting a new skin routine might be every morning, something like tied up with a time or anything like that that you can do to make it more specific. So thank you very much for that suggestion. AJ, any others?
There was one. What's your favorite home care routine?
What's your favorite home care routine? Awesome. And that's a great engagement question. And we're going to get to engagement questions a little bit later on. So I love that, because what that does suggest is involving the visitor to your social media in the dialogue, and it helps create a ton of community. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that. So one thing I would like to create an awareness of is a call to action is loving advice, and an engagement question is a question. So like, what's your favorite song to listen to in the morning that gets your blood going? And so in creating and helping our clients create home rituals to help them get through the day and mark the different stages of the day will be really helpful for them. And a call to action can help them do that. So now we're talking a little bit about moving from reaction to action. And what I'd like to suggest to you is because these are so stressful times, like all we can think about is the weird feeling it is to lock that door for the knowing and walk away knowing that tomorrow we're not going to be showing up at our spa. That's weird. And then we're home and we're like, what can I do? It's a really, really difficult headspace to be in. So I would like to suggest that you remember your why. Why are you in this business to begin with? And I'm going to suggest that it's to provide these key value propositions: escape, calm, feeling beautiful, or empowering people to feel beautiful, to help them relax, to help them indulge. And think about your spa and the particular the particular key value, the intangible value that you provide. And remember, think of yourself as a bank. You're an essential service now more than ever. If you're providing all these things, people need this now more than they've ever needed it. So it might look different, it might feel really, really different, but your relevance is stronger now than I can imagine any other time. The trick is how to meet that need in a way that using the tools that we have. So a little bit of some things that you've probably heard. I know that clients of mine have heard this. You're my escape from the stress of this world. You probably heard that. Your clients have probably said to you something similar to that. Or, I love coming here. You're my monthly treat to myself. You've probably heard that. So remember that. And remember how hard it is for your clients to have this taken away. This is part of the, the weirdness that is this situation that we face. So your challenge is to be relevant. And I put the period in front of the B, not to be like all Apple computers or whatever, but because when we're relevant, we exist. If we lose relevance, that's when we stop. That's when our brand gets threatened. So what I really want to emphasize is what we're doing is we're strategizing, and we're going to get into tactics around staying relevant during these really complicated times. So again, we're moving from strategy to thinking of we want to be relevant, that's our strategy, to tactics. Okay, how do we do that? So let's explore it a little bit and moving into asking some questions. So I've got some examples here. We heard an example earlier in the presentation from one of our listeners. And I've got some examples here, and I'll just go through them. Using your diffuser, fill your space with your favorite aromatherapy oil. What's the oil that you can't live without? In fact, I've got some oil going, I've got my diffuser going right now as I deliver this presentation. What music transports you to blue skies and clear beaches? Other than music, what sound is most relaxing for you? A summer storm, a lazy river, or what's your disconnecting ritual? And as you leave those questions, and you might put them in your Instagram story, might be on an Instagram post, very Instagram centric, I know that, but you can do the same, absolutely do the same on Facebook. And as you do that, ask for comments, because I'd like to suggest to you that it's the comments that create a community. So if there's anybody that you really follow and that you've been following for a while, either on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, you probably, at first you'd go for the posts or the updates, and eventually though, you still return from the posts and the updates, but you stay for the comments, right? Like, comments can be hilarious, they can be infuriating, they can be amazingly relevant. And sometimes what you find, and I know I have this experience with some people that I follow on Instagram, but the same people are commenting, and the comments are funny or predictable or whatever, and it's a little bit of a community. And also the same with YouTube. So go ahead and ask for comments. Like, in the comments below, list your favorite scent, for example, and then wait for the comments. And at first, if you don't have a tremendous amount of engagement, you won't have any comments. So here's a bit of a pro tip. It's a bit of a cheat, but it's okay. Email your friends and let them know that you've updated the post, and could they add something to the comments? And they will, because nobody wants to be the person to leave the first comment or even the second comment, but they will leave the third or fourth or fifth. So definitely email your friends, your family, your staff, and create the feeling of a conversation. And then, of course, needless to say, like and reply to every comment that comes in. Okay, so answering the question, okay, what do I do? Here's a great example of almost a first act and a second act. And that's suggesting a gift card, purchase of a gift card. So here we've got in the image of the phone, we've got the notification that they're closing. Immediately below that, we've got a good call to action, buy a gift card. So really, really excellent best practice where we've got here's the thing that's different, and here's what you can do with that information. It's almost like sending a really good email. Send an email, a little bit of information, and at the end of the email tends to be a call to action. So would you give me a call? Or we should schedule a meeting to discuss or something. It's probably a practice that you do all the time. It's exactly the same with this kind of messaging. So I've tweaked the language a little bit to make it, I guess, a little bit more client-centric and a little bit sensitive to the circumstance that we're looking at. So I'd like to read it. When this is all behind us, treat yourself or your friends. We'd love to see you. So plan for a beautiful future. Buy a gift card today. Or when this is behind us, what better way to say bye-bye coronavirus than to say hello to self-indulgence and relaxation. Treat your future self today. Something like that. And you might find that is not aligned with your brand messaging. Do, though, I would suggest, have the language that allows or invokes the brand, the unique brand promise that is your brand. If your brand is indulgence, then make it sound indulgent. If your brand is empowering people to be beautiful, then try to infuse your language with that, whatever is tying back to your brand. Okay, and moving on, here's an example of an organization that's doing this super, super well. So I specifically wanted to call them out. They're based here in Toronto, and it's not a spa, branded. It's more of a, well, you'll see, but it's Wellbe, and this is their Instagram. Stay in, be well, and then if you swipe, as you see, the middle phone is a swipe, and now they're moving to provide everything available virtually, or a lot of their services available virtually. And then the phone image on the right provides some language as an example of exactly what they're doing. So I wanted to use that as a great example of very, very strong messaging around, okay, things are different. So this is what we're doing that's a little bit different. So the question then becomes, how can you offer virtual wellness? And it's hard. We have to think differently about the things that we do. So here are some best practices anyway. And again, it still comes down to being relevant. And we are relevant. You are relevant. And I really want to underscore that. Your clients absolutely needs your presence in their life now more than ever. And you can still be present in their life, even if it's through social media. So here are some best practices. Be consistent. Check back every day at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. So again, and that's also specific. So what we're promising is that every day at 11 a.m., 3 p.m., we're going to update something that you can do to help you with your wellness. And people will check in. Be creative. Again, it's not just about the money. So it's really about continuing to play a role in your clients' lives, and they will reward you for it with loyalty and maybe even with purchases. So here's an example of something that you can do, or you can advise. Assemble a Spotify playlist, or you can do, and you can share that. And it also can be different Spotify playlists for different times of the day. So it can be your morning wake-up playlist, can be your afternoon energizer, and it can be your evening relaxing playlist. And this can be branded to music that they might actually hear in your spa, or it can be your staff picks. Any way that you can personalize it for the people that your clients know. They'll want to know what your input is. And also it can be about the money, or it can be about doing business. So you can, and one example is you can offer a spa at home wellness kit, for example. And you might even include a video of you or your staff preparing those kits. And it would have all the great stuff that you would want to include, not too much. And it would also be prepared with love. And your clients would get to see that. And this leads to the next point, being authentic and being vulnerable. You're people too. We're all people going through this, and you can share that. You can express how challenging it is and how much you miss coming into the spa, just like your clients do, and how much you miss that, and how tricky it is, and all the things that you're worried about. People like to feel that they're not alone in their worries, and the more you can share that human side of you, the greater the opportunity for connection. So there's other things you can do. Guided meditations, if that's something that you might have access to, or any sort of instructional video. What's something that you can instruct your clients to do at home? It might be a skin wellness routine, and there might be an opportunity for them to make an online purchase if they want to maximize that skin wellness routine. I'm going to suggest that not making it about you can't participate unless you have this unique product, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to maintain that connection. And there's a tool that I'd like to share with you. It's called Zoom.us. I use it all the time for my conference calls, and it does have the opportunity to record, and it's free. If you want to get like a fancy version, you can pay for it, but there's a ton that's free. So if you do want to record things with your computer, I strongly encourage Zoom.us. Okay, so I have a virtual challenge for you. What are 3 ways that your spa can be relevant to your clients tomorrow? 3 ways. And think about that. It's a big question. One way might be preparing videos, instructional videos. One way might be simply sending out regular engagement questions or statements or loving calls to action at specific times during the day. And also consider the medium. Is it going to be Facebook or Instagram or both? I would suggest both, and maybe even leaning toward Instagram, but of course it really, really depends on your clientele. And operationally, here's how you can make that happen. You can brainstorm your options with your staff. And if you want to use Zoom.us to create a conference call, it's really, or Google Hangouts or whatever it is, you can use the tools that are available for you to consider your options. And then create a schedule. And that schedule is really a work back schedule from some promises that you might have established when you're brainstorming your options. And then assign accountabilities. And this is really important because it helps keep your team engaged and focused on their important role in the spa, even when they're not coming in every day. So, and it also keeps you all together and provides a really good context for everyone to provide mutual support. And last but certainly not least, make some promises to your clients and keep them. So if our promise is we're going to update our guidance to you every day at 3, keep that promise. And at first, people may not be showing up, or you may not get any comments, but once there's a little bit of consistency, I'm 100% sure that you will. Okay,
Pat,
finally, okay.
While people think about the wonderful points you've just made, and they think about the questions you've just asked them, we've had a point raised which I think you'd like to expand on.
Sure.
With the difficulty of laying staff off, consider asking clients to buy gift cards to help staff that have been furloughed, so they have clients when they come back. This could be seen as a win-win for both the business and the clients, and the clients can feel like they're helping out in a crisis, which is always a feel-good. Can you expand on that and share your thoughts?
Oh, I love that. That's brilliant, and I really love that. And if I can spend a little bit of time on it, and I'm sure that there's a nuance there that we want to avoid. And we want to avoid the nuance that we're asking for charity, which we're not, and you're not. So probably something like, and proximity is our friend here. So if the first part of the message was around gratitude, if you can infuse your messages with gratitude at every opportunity, then that's really helpful. It might be, we're super grateful to all of our staff, and we're hopeful for their wellness in every way, including economically. And we want to thank you, all of our clients, for your generosity up until this time, or something like that. And of course, that would be tweaked a little bit. And then somewhere physically nearby, like for their eye, they can see an opportunity to help out a staff member by buying a gift card. And the messaging can be consistently. There's no shame in saying, help us out today so you can indulge tomorrow. And you can even write that down and use that. Help us out today. Times are tough for us, and we're here for you. So help us out today, and we'll make sure that you get to indulge tomorrow. And so rather than tying it into something specific, you can make it a little bit more general. But I do really respect and applaud the thought of not making the economic hardship a secret, because it's a reality. It's a reality for all of us. So what you might do is have, like, another example could be staff profiles. So thanks very much, Wendy. Wendy's worked at our staff, has been with us for 18 months. Here are some great comments that we've had from Wendy, and some expressions of gratitude that Wendy has received over that period of time. Then post them, and then thanks, Wendy. And then a little bit of a side note, just to all of our clients, during this very difficult time, we've sadly had to temporarily lay our staff off, and we're wishing them well, and they're checking back all the time. And maybe even that person, fictitious person, but in your example, it would be a real person, Wendy, could jump in and say, hey, I miss you guys. These are weird days, but anything you can do, I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with everybody here. And it's the challenge of building a community. And if you can do that, then I guarantee you, your clients will step up, and you probably won't have to ask them. So that's my thought about that. And I will say this at the end, but if anybody wants more specific dialogue, I'm going to make an offer toward the end of this. So thank you very much for that question. AJ, is there anything else before I continue?
No, that was just the really important point I wanted to get out there, especially considering what you're currently talking about.
Thank you. And I think that was brilliant. So thank you to the person who submitted that. And then I'd also like to suggest that on social, we all use a hashtag, Canada Spa Proud. And I'll be following it. And if you post something and you would like more eyes on it, and you would like support from this community, because let's face it, we have to support each other, right? Then use that hashtag, Canada Spa Proud, and we'll see it. I will see it, and I'll repost it, and I'll comment on it, and I'm quite certain that you will have others in this call, and folks who are seeing this presentation after today, and maybe even your staff and the staff of others, to see that post and to jump in and provide some support. And there's been an interesting comment, at Leading Spas of Canada, we've been tossing around some of the language, and the phrase social distancing is kind of an odd phrase, right? Because here we're in technology, and what we're doing, what we're talking about is building connections. So we're not really distancing. There's physical distancing, but what this is all about is about building proximity and building a community using technology, and that's kind of the opposite of distancing. So I'd like to thank Leading Spas of Canada for that input, and particularly Catherine Gallagher for that piece of really interesting insight. And so moving on, if you would like some help, feel free to email me at pat@patpurdue.com. And maybe send me your plan. I'd love to see it. And I will, for everybody on this video, who's listening, provide 30 minutes conference session for some guidance, and I won't charge you for that. So if there's some messaging that you would like to bounce off of me, I spend a lot of my time thinking about messaging, so I would be entirely happy to help anyone from the spa industry in Canada who could benefit from that, because I truly believe that you provide an essential service. People need wellness now, and an opportunity to disconnect and to indulge. They need it now more than ever. So thank you very much. So now I'm going to open it up to you. First of all, thank you very much for sharing this time with me. And AJ, are there any questions that have popped in during this time that I've been speaking?
Yes, we've got a couple of questions. First one, what is your preferred social media platform or platforms for reaching existing clients, especially in relation to the being there for them type message?
That's such a great question. Thank you to the person who submitted that. And in the back of your mind, you probably know the answer. It's going to be where your clients are. And that's the simple rule of engaging over social media, is engage with our customers or our clients where they are. So, and that can be, it's probably not Twitter, but it could be Instagram, it could be Facebook, depending on their demographic. It's probably not Snapchat. So, although I suppose it could be. It could even be WhatsApp, depending on the relationship that you've got with your clients. But WhatsApp is very different from the rest of that. So, my preferred one is Instagram. I find that incredibly concise, and there's so much information that can be shared over a short period of time and reshared and reposted and commented on, and there's all kinds of fun that you can have with that. Although, depending on your demographic, Facebook might be more appropriate for you to do that. And you don't need to choose one or the other. You can, whatever you post on Facebook, you can also post on Instagram, and vice versa. Thanks, AJ. Any other questions? And if there's a follow-up, or please send it to AJ, or feel free to shoot me an email.
Thanks for that answer, Pat. The next question we have here is, can you please expand on the helping each other out versus handout messaging?
Oh, thank you, for sure. So helping each other out is, we're all in this boat together, and we are. I heard a comment, was it Deepak Chopra, and folks on this webinar probably heard it as well, where he was like saying, well, it's like the Earth is one big cruise ship, and we're all on this cruise ship together. And given the circumstances and the events on cruise ships, it was a particularly poignant comment and observation. So we are all in this boat. So we can all help each other. Probably in the messaging, if the messaging is our spa is suffering and our staff is suffering, help us out. Buy a gift. Please buy a gift certificate. That's kind of asking for a handout or asking for a charity. If the message is we're so grateful to all of our clients who have supported us over the years, and even though these days are difficult, we're committed to being there for you. Even if you can't come into our facility, we want to meet you here virtually, and we want you to know that we will do our best to take care of you during these times. So we're starting with a gift, and then we prove that. We show up and we keep that promise. And the gratitude, 100%, I've seen this happen so many times, the gratitude will flow back. They will say, in fact, I sent a message just today around, you've been helping us so much, how can we help you? And when you get that question, you can say, well, you know what? It would really help us out if you would like to buy a gift certificate for you. And if you also wanted to treat your friends, we could really appreciate it. And believe me, you'll have the best spa day you can imagine when this is all behind us. There's a bit of a nuance there. And I hope that was not too unclear.
I think that summed it up pretty well. Thanks, Pat. The next one here is how frequently should we post our social media updates? And is it important to put the message out on the website as well as social media?
Oh, great. Thank you so much for that question. Very important to put the message out on the website, but people don't tend to visit the website all the time, but we're all on Instagram, particularly now that we're all at home, right? Like how many times did the folks listening today check your Instagram? I'm probably over 200 times. So, and I have my go-to people, right? And as you do as well. So it's really weird. Like we have all this time, but we're all stressed and we're looking for community. So the answer to how many times should you post, I would say at least 2 or 3 times a day, at least. Make sure if it's Instagram, make sure your story is populated. So make sure that it always has new content and never runs out of its 24-hour cycle. So there are people who I follow, that small businesses across Canada that post on their stories, and I want to make a distinction between posts and stories. And for those who are pretty comfortable with Instagram, you probably agree that stories are so much more important than a post. And so keep your story posted, almost update it every hour, every 2 hours, and people will consistently hit your story, and you will see that. So keep your story refreshed. And I'm sorry, AJ, help me out. That was the frequency, and what was the other side of that question?
Yes, and it was just how important is it to put your messaging on both the website and the social media?
Thanks so much. So I think the website messaging can be static. It can be we are closed, and almost like the earlier example. And for updates, we are staying in touch with you, and please check our Instagram and our Facebook page frequently for updates, and because we're continuing to be here for you. So updating a website, depending on how it's been built, can be really, really tricky, and websites aren't designed for very, very frequent updates. So I would probably put a signpost saying, like an overt call to action saying, come see us on Instagram, or come see us on Facebook, or both, or wherever it is.
Excellent. Thank you, Pat. We have had a couple more questions come in. First one is, Pat, what is your Instagram?
Oh, thank you. It's right there. It's socialicity_media. It's the image that's on the screen.
Fantastic. And
I'm very active. I don't post that much, as you can see with 28 posts, but I have, because my company being what it is, I have actually a bunch of Instagrams. But this is the one I use most often, and I spend a lot of time with my clients and checking out Instagram. So if you post and you tag me, I'll see it and I'll comment.
And a lead on from what we just spoke about in relation to populating the website, social media, there was a question, can you expand on what populated means?
Populate, I'm sorry, thank you. Just add content. So it can be a question. If it's Instagram, it can be, if you go onto canva.com, it's a great free tool to create images and words and language, or I just mean by populate, I just mean add content.
Fantastic. And we've got one more question at the moment, though. People, please feel free to continue to ask. And that question is, we don't do a lot of video recording. Can you give us some tips about recording videos for our social media?
Oh, what a great question. Thank you to the person who submitted that, because you're not alone. I'm quite certain that there's a lot of people in this webinar that have been thinking the same thing. And you don't need to make it slick. Get somebody to hold the iPhone or the Samsung, point it at your direction, and talk. It's as simple as that. And there's somebody who does a really good example, Gabrielle Bernstein. Her videos, and you may know her, she's fairly well known as a thought leader and sort of an inspirational guru type of person. But she's been making these really casual videos. She's sitting around in her sweatpants, just talking to the camera. If you do want to get slick, go, in your daily outings, if there's a technology store that you can go to, you can get a tiny little tripod for your phone, but you don't need that. You just need somebody to hold the camera or hold the phone for you. It could be one of your kids if you're home with your kids, or a spouse or something like that. And then you can talk. Or if you're at your spa, maybe your spa's closed, but you're at your spa because you've got product there. And maybe you're preparing some wellness kits. So somebody's holding the camera and you're saying, hey, you know what? I know these times are really tricky, but here's some wellness kits that we're preparing for our clients just like you, because you're really important to us. And that's all you need to do. One tip that I can provide is the first few are going to suck. That's okay. Practice, practice, practice. It'll be fun for an hour, 2 hours, and then it'll become easy for you to do, really natural, and you'll be good to go. And you can even record direct to Instagram if you want to do that, or any way that you want to do that. So thanks to the person that sent in that question.
I think that's all the questions we have for now, but thank you, Pat. If you want to keep going.
Sure. That's so as you saw from my clicking forward in the blank screen, that's pretty well all I have. And I really want to thank everyone for attending. These are really unique times. And I want to thank Leading Spas of Canada for inviting me to share some insights. And I also want to emphasize that you have a really important role to play during these difficult times. And I so respect that you're as concerned as anyone about your own futures. And these are tricky times. So it's really hard to be concerned for our own futures and to provide that leadership role. So anything that I can do to help with that, I'm happy to do that. So feel free to contact me directly. My email is out there. And then if there's anything specific that you were able to take away from this webinar and you want to send me an email to share that, I would love to hear about it, because that would make me really happy. So thanks to everyone, and thanks to AJ and Leading Spas of Canada, and thanks to everybody who joined this webinar today. It was a pleasure spending this time with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pat, for donating both your time and your insights in preparing this webinar. I'm sure all the attendees got a lot out of it. On behalf of Leading Spas of Canada, thank you to everyone for joining us today. These are very challenging times for all of us, and Pat and the Leading Spa board has asked me to remind everyone that although we're being told social distancing, it's actually more of a spatial distancing. We should be social, we should interact by phone, via email, via text message, check up on each other, make sure everyone is safe. A copy of the video from today's webinar will be made available to all attendees, and it will be on the Leading Spas of Canada's webpage shortly. Meantime, please feel free to take Pat up on his very generous offer if you are inclined. And don't forget to use the hashtag CanadaSpaProud for all your posts. Stay safe, and we look forward to hearing from you soon and having you join us next time. Thank you.